on Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Glad to have you join us. I've got time for the papers now, and two guest analysts are in the house, one in-house and the other. We say thanks to technology for connecting us properly here. Let's say good morning to the man far away first, but close by. Good morning, Joseph Obari.
Good morning, Omatseye. Good to see you guys once again.
All right, and
good morning, Lagos.
Sorry. Good morning, Lagos says good morning to you, Abuja, and that's because saying you are talking to us from Abuja. And good morning, Ikemesit.
Good morning. I'm 3 times lucky. Your producer really needs to compensate me better for the But good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Joseph. Right.
Good morning, Ikemesit.
We've seen another Friday.
Yes, indeed. We thank the Lord.
Yes. Well, this chemistry already is brewing, and it looks very good to devour these papers we've got right now.
The best freshly.
So Lagos, we've got this first headline coming from the Guardian newspaper, and the Guardian here leads with this newspaper headline saying, "Contempt charge. NLC threatens strike if summons is not withdrawn." That's according to the Guardian newspaper. And so our first story will go to Joseph to help us build on this. We thought there was the backslapping and all of those after that meeting at the presidency, and then here we are. What happened?
Yeah, I think what the Ministry of Justice did is that they had earlier, indicated that they were going to follow through with the law and ensure that the National Industrial Court, decision as to prevent NLC and TUC from going ahead with the strike and protest was a decision that the court had already made. So they told the unions that they were going to go ahead to stop them from doing so by initiating the contempt proceedings.
Yes.
So I think the government, it looks like government were not working in sync. The presidency and the Ministry of Justice is on one track, just doing what it said it's going to be doing, whereas the presidency is using more political approach to it. So you can see a disconnect in the government and in government strategy. That's my reading. It could also be that, well, we have to hold the stick on one hand and use the carrot in the other, if that's a strategy at all. Yes. But it just forebodes a very bad relationship. When you do this, you have this understanding on the one hand, and then you now threaten them with the other. I think what should be done is to see that they actually just kill this case, because it's not going to be to the benefit of anybody. As lawyers, sometimes we want to just push things for the base of the law. Law is just not about the law. It's about society and the well-being of society. So if the action of the Ministry of Justice through the Solicitor General is not going to augur well for the presidency's strategy and for the good of the nation, I mean, locking up Nigeria now, it's not to the benefit, even the workers themselves, locking up the country, it's not a positive thing for all of us at this stage, right? They may say it's a tool, an instrument they want to use, but both sides have to look at the pros and the cons very carefully.
Because the tone of the communique that was issued by Labour, it's something that you can't even miss it, even if you are blind or you are deaf from what it is saying. A communique issued at the end of their NEC meeting says they're demanding the immediate withdrawal of that litigation, withdrawal of the alleged litigious terrorism by the Federal Ministry of Justice before the end of Friday, August 11th, or else what?
Well, or else strike. They've told you.
To be clear, Lagos, don't be bamboozled by all this English. If something is in the courts, it can't be terrorism by definition.
Okay.
It can't be all relaxed.
Okay. So Lagos, we would like to also get you in on this conversation. As you see, it's building up already. We'd like to be part of it also by reaching us up on WhatsApp. Messages only on 0809-444-0981. The number once again is 0809-444-0981. That takes us into our next paper. Ikemesit, this one is for you. It is because as we speak right now, there's need to function on this one. Tinubu seeks the UK support to secure West Africa. That's according to the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, when you factor, I like you when you respond to this headline, factor the events of the last 1 week into it and then build away.
Yeah, so James Cleverly, the UK foreign minister, right, has been in the country. I think he's left now. But he's been around for a few days, and in his meeting with the president, basically the president, they really spoke about two things, right? The energy transition, and particularly gas, and putting Nigeria on a more surer footing to be able to export more gas to the UK and by extension to Western Europe. In light of the war in Russia and Ukraine, the West is looking for alternative gas sources from Russia, and so a rotating crew of European leaders have been making stops at all of the major gas producers on the continent. You're thinking Algeria, you're thinking Gabon and Angola, and also us, right? Then the second thing, like you alluded to very clearly in your introduction, right, is about Niger. The UK, along with France, the United States, a couple of other countries, were able to successfully evacuate their citizens and diplomatic staff from that country yesterday. We all know the situation with ECOWAS. They are mulling a range of options. They've already instituted, border closures. They've talked about sanctions. Nigeria has cut off basically 70% of, Niger's power because, we've got a high transmission line that basically exports power to Niger. I know, surprise, Nigerians, we export electricity. Yeah, but also Tinubu talked about the fact that, because every option is on the table, the United Kingdom, in conjunction with other international partners, right, should be looking to support Nigeria, by extension ECOWAS, in terms of restoring Niger back to, a constitutional form of government. The entire situation in Niger is really developing. As a matter of fact, I was talking with your producer before the show, and I don't know if a lot of people actually know about this, right? But some Nigerian companies, as well as NITDA, right, the Nigerian, the National Information Technology Development Agency, right, suffered a cyber attack, right? Yesterday, and a pro-Sudan, activist group, right, is claiming responsibility, and they're basically saying that, if Nigeria does not backtrack off of its warnings to, amongst other things, potentially militarily intervene in Niger, then there'll be more cyber attacks to come. So on both the diplomatic as well as on the economic front, not to say anything about the political developments on the ground in Niger, there's a lot that's really happening, right? And it seems as though with every passing hour, there's one new development, right?
Okay, but it also looks like people want to get the snake out of the hole, but it is whose hands would you use in getting the snake? Look, because when you look at the statements, if you follow it down, the UK and the Western power, they want Nigeria to be in the forefront of this before they would come in. That's why I had to draw into that analogy of saying, to get the snake out, you need somebody's hand to go into the hole, but not yours.
Yeah, and apparently the hand that they want to, the hand they want to use is the West African property.
So
a Nigerian-dominated hand. Hey, you know what? So the thing is, it's a combination of a couple of factors, right? So in the West, there's very little appetite for yet another military intervention in another far-flung part of the world.
Exactly.
Right? But on the other hand, also, in the growing geopolitical competition between the West and China, and also to a lesser extent, Russia, the West is now being put in a position where it has to figure out in every part of the world who are our friends and who are where are the places where potential challenges, right, would come. If you look at all of the other West African countries that have pledged some level of support to Niger, Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they have a lot of direct and indirect Russian military support, either directly through Moscow or indirectly through the Wagner group, right? And that freaks out the West, really, because if West Africa emerges as a particular theater of influence where Russia, and by extension China, makes enough significant inroads that partners within the region, right, are turned off from, Western commitments and Western forms of engagement. Obviously, that puts Washington and London and Paris and all of these other Western capitals, right, on the back seat. That's why Niger borders them. Not to say anything of the fact that Niger is one of the world's largest suppliers of uranium. France is former colonial partner, right, and produces something like almost 70% of its electricity from nuclear energy. So it needs access to those uranium sources, right, that are being mined largely by French companies.
But when you
so their economic, their geopolitical, their political, there are
Everything.
also regional influences at play here. So Niger is not a simple question, right?
Yeah.
To which there's a simple solve for X here, but
Yeah.
for Nigerian, for ECOWAS, and also for wider global geopolitical reasons,
Okay.
it seems as though the global consensus is Niger has to go back to democratic.
Let's with that, let's go to Abuja, and then that's Joseph at this time to pick up this next story waiting from the Punch newspaper. Federal government to implement no work, no pay for striking resident doctors. That's according to the Punch newspaper. With a bit of the story here saying the federal government has directed the chief medical directors and medical of in the federal tertiary hospitals to implement the no work, no pay policy on the striking members of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. Factor that in also to know that a life was lost in Lagos here while this national strike is ongoing.
In fact, she's a member of this very association,
yeah, so
Association of Resident Doctors, and they have never fared so well in the health sector in Nigeria. These are doctors who are qualified and they are learning to become a specialist in the various areas and fulfill the requirement of internship for 1 year, and also to be able to qualify to start practicing medicine. But they are very critical because most of the work done in the hospital are done by these group of people, even though they are learning, but they're also very closely working with the consultants and the registrars and so on, who are their senior colleagues. And they are the ones who do the ground job that doctors do and so on. So they are very, very critical. Now, to treat their interests and their needs with levity, the way the government does, is very, very disturbing. And of course, in Nigeria, it seems the only language the government understands is industrial action. Even in the UK, doctors use the same instrument. They withdraw their services. If there's no way you can make government understand what you're saying, the best thing is simply, it's painful, but I mean, we've lost lives in this country when resident doctors went on strike a number of times, and the hospital struggled to keep up. So if you know that these people are very critical to your healthcare delivery, then you should pay attention to their needs and be able to address it. Now, on the other hand, the government has got this instrument in the systems. It's been there since 2001. I mean, they are just calling it up to apply. My question is, does it really solve the problem? Because like the doctor, their president said, they are aware of it. They knew, they anticipated it's going to happen. Now,
yes.
so look at what happened in Lagos. That young life, a doctor, somebody's government money was spent on her, directly or indirectly by the Nigerian government, by people, her family, and so on. And her life is lost in such a reckless manner. Avoidably. This is a resident doctor too. So and a hospital owned by
about
government.
2
weeks away from getting it fully finishing the housemanship.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. And so you see this incompetence, this negligence that has characterized government activities is simply, how does anybody expect resident doctors in the event of this? These are the kind of things they are talking about. These are the kind of things you're talking about. 10-story building, you have people there, and you don't think that you should service that is critical. It's a safety matter, and you pay attention to it and make sure it's what does it take? You have the services of, there are companies that maintain these things. Provide the fund. I'm sure fund is provided for running the hospital. So you prioritize what are the security issues, what are safety issues, what are these, and then you make sure this is working.
Okay. The messages are piling up already, so that we don't leave most of them, unattended to. Yes, on read today. Just to remind you that you can be part of the conversation on Freshly Pressed by sending messages up to 0809-444-0981 will be the number. Messages only. So let's go to this one from Yinka Bolu, and Yinka Bolu here says, "I'm surprised that the lovers of Nigeria branch will encourage the hubris happening over there, and I expect our intelligence agencies to be on alert for those subtly advocating for the same in Nigeria. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso all have common borders, and there have been reports that activities of terrorists in the common region have been on the high. Burkina Faso is third on the Global Terrorism Index. So what use is the coup? The other day, it was asking Putin to come establish a nuclear plant in Burkina Faso. It shows these guys are clueless, can even ask for the same in Nigeria before NLC will now go on strike and leave the reactor unattended to. Well, Niger must be made to go back to democracy, so says Yinka Bolu. And next we've got this one in from Dr. I says, hello, Smooth. Nigerians and the Nigerian government don't care about their safety and health. I think the exodus of doctors would increase, and I feel that government will keep threatening and posturing rather than address the real issues. Dr. Diaso's death is emblematic of the problem in the health sector in Nigeria. Dr. I sent in that one. Well, let's get back to some. We'll get to the messages once again. Ikemesit, this one is coming to you right now. It seems we'll go to court a whole lot today on the show because I see this one here.
Well, it's when Joseph and I,
and it seemed more like you, well, but that means your accounts would also, the alerts would ring, but if it seemed like this. So take that to the Punch newspaper. NBA laments judicial officers' poor welfare. So.
Yeah, well, in terms of the alerts, I was going to say the alerts will not come from doing freshly.
Oh, okay. But, you have to put that out there.
Yeah, of course I had to.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically the NBA president was, or at least a statement from his office, right, made these remarks around improving judicial welfare, just for judges and justices. This on the back of the unfortunate loss of two senior members of the Nigerian judiciary, Mr. Supreme Court, right? Mr. passed away, as well as Justice George Malong of the Federal High Court. So basically what the NBA is saying is that the federal government right now, it's in a state where it's basically trying to set its agenda. It's picking its federal cabinet, there are nominees that are going through. Lateef Fagbemi, who many people think is the show-on pick for Attorney General and Minister of Justice. I've not followed the confirmation hearings back to back. I don't know if he has had his yet. It would have been interesting to hear what his thoughts and his ideas are around this, because a lot of the work on the federal executive side in terms of, either by constitutional amendment or by legislation before the National Assembly, or even just by administrative and operational practice, a lot of those will sit squarely, right, within his office. So it'll be interesting if his confirmation hearing hasn't happened yet, right, what his thoughts, which may be indicative of where the Tinubu administration is around the judiciary and judicial welfare is.
Ikemesit, we hear a whole lot about the independence of the judiciary. How crucial is funding for independence of the judiciary in Nigeria, and link it up to this welfare that is surfacing again? So
I would go as far as saying that financial independence is probably 95% of the entire components of judicial independence. I'm leaving the remaining 5% because there are sort of other things. I mean, you could give someone all the money in the world and they decide to be badly behaved, right? Yes, but at the very least, if there is, and actually we had constitutional amendments which the previous president signed, right, very late, I think in March, right, of this year, which assured that, for example, funding for the judiciary will become a first line charge, right, which basically means that whatever it is that the judiciary asks for, the National Assembly will generally just give it to them. Yes, and they will move on. And there's also a greater assurance that, allocations and disbursements will be released as at when due. It's astonishing that wasn't in our constitution to begin with, since 1999. But financial independence is really, really important, because you can't necessarily say you are objective or dispassionate, or you have the opportunity to be objective or dispassionate if a vast majority of the cases that come before you, right, involve litigants that are in effect your paymasters, and they use the implicit threats of withholding, your financial subventions, right, over your head. I mean, there are many judgments that I and Joseph and a lot of, our colleagues have listened to, and they don't make sense legally, but they make sense when you think about all the extra legal components.
It's worse in the States, It was at the
okay.
Yes, and it was precisely. It is worse at the state level. The federal judiciary is even better, which is why when I initially looked at this story, I was like, I think Supreme Court justices are fine. They are very well paid.
Look, guys.
And senior federal judges generally are fine. It's the state judges, the magistrates, the guys at the customary court level. And say a prayer for them.
If I've had cause to walk into some of these magistrates' court, and especially because you mentioned it now. Honestly, if the colonial masters come back and see some of the buildings we call courts, magistrates' court, they will wonder if we can dispense justice there. But I say also, in this matter of financial independence now for judiciary, how can a man even interpret properly when money, he thinks about money and his welfare, how can he even interpret the law properly?
Well, there's that. I mean, first and foremost, I'm not going to join you on this joy parade for you. I mean, you're trying to imply that judges are ab initio and always think about money. For the record, okay. I did not say it, and I did not imply it. Yeah, but the point is, a large component of the conversation around financial independence isn't just about salaries and welfare packages. Like you said, it's about the right infrastructure. Yeah. It's about provisioning for things like stationaries. It's about giving the right technology and providing the right technology so that justice is dispensed of quickly. Judges are still required to record proceedings by hand. Registers, it's in
this age and time.
Right, and all of that stuff. And so it's no wonder there's a huge backlog of cases. I think there's something like almost 100,000 unattended to cases, according to one number that I saw from Citizens Gavel. So those are the kind of things where increased resource allocation could help.
Okay. Looks like a fine place to drift onto the next headline from Premium Times this morning. Joseph, that's your story. The Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria suspends car hire services at Abuja airports over factional issues around that area. And knowing what aviation is it using that term? It's a touche kind of finesse environment where you would not expect toggery and agberoism and all of those things there. So how did we get to this point? Is it good for the image of the country?
Have you traveled to Abuja? What do you mean by toggery and agberoism at Abuja airport is?
Let the man in Abuja defend.
I travel to Abuja.
No, he has a case there.
It comes with the territory.
I think the fan tried to resolve this issue and try to take out this whole idea arrangement to bring in service, taxi services in Abuja was a way to deal with that problem. But unfortunately, it's still played into it because, first of all, it launched its own taxi service, which it's like it's dead on arrival. It's like a stillborn. It never really took off. Now, for you to travel from Abuja, from the airport, Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport into Abuja, you're spending an average of 12 to 15,000 if you're taking the car alone, unless you want to pool with other travelers you don't know, and they take you now to bunch you in your location and take you there. Then you may pay a cheaper amount of money. And the truth simply is that there's so much money here, and that is the root cause of the fight. So you've got two taxi pool services company slugging it out at the detriment of the travelers. So it's a serious challenge. And I think, I believe that what FAN has done is to suspend this and address the issue. What the statement suggests is that they are leaving it to these factions to sort themselves out. And that's very, very unfortunate. Because what they need to do is to step in and ensure that sanity prevails. Because right now, it's not easy. It's not funny. I travel as often, and I tell you, the luck I have is simply that I have somebody who is registered there. Whenever I'm trying, just say, come and pick me.
Exactly.
If you're not in that category, if you don't have somebody you can rely on, you're in trouble.
You know what I'm saying? When things get to factions, especially with transport workers, with our history in this country, and the way before in a flash, it can get very, very, very ugly.
That's why I was saying And that's why when you were trying to suggest that Abuja people were different because the Abuja people are like, no.
Okay.
It's a Nigerian problem.
It's a Nigerian problem.
Okay. All right, so let's see. The messages are here for us, so we must make sure we get the messages across. So Yinka Bulu comes back again and he goes on with this one. I don't mean to sound insensitive, but while we were holding the government accountable and pressing their neck, we Nigerians as a whole should be safety minded. When the complaint of the elevator was made far back in 2020, that's 3 years ago, why not shut down the lift? Why even attempt to use the lift at all? Why not protest that we ain't going beyond the 4th floor? How safety averse are the occupants of the building? Was there a facility evacuation plan in place? What's the maintenance record of the lift? Was it pasted on the elevator? Safety is everyone's responsibility, not just the government and facility manager that will most definitely end up in jail. And I
have a response to that, gentleman, because the truth simply, who has the leadership for all of these things is mentioned. Somebody has it, somebody is heading the hospital and he has responsibility for it. It's a government-run hospital. So don't, it's not a matter of, yes, we should do this, we should protest, but somebody has to take responsibility for this. And that there is no washing away this matter, please, with excuses.
Ikemesit, the last slice of this on the table for you, it's yours. So that will take us to.
Sound palatable.
Isn't it palatable?
Okay.
Good. So consumers, this is from the Vanguard newspaper, just to inform you. Consumers pay 243 billion now for electricity as generation hits 4,334 megawatts. So isn't this palatable? Money involved.
Anyway, let me just go to story.
Yeah.
So, so first and foremost, this is a slight increase from the 243 billion that was paid in the 4th quarter of 2022. But there are some important numbers here that sort of stick out for me. First, the total revenue that was collected by all the discos and all of this represents a collection efficiency of 68.75%. Now, anyone who has superior knowledge to me on this should actually explain what collection efficiency means, because to my mind, what that means is that basically this 243 billion naira was basically just about 70% of what the discos could have realized from customers, right? That they eventually, were able to collect, which brings me to the issue which I consistently like to talk on about electricity in Nigeria, which is that there's a who will bail the cat situation, right, in power. And I will always say this whenever I talk about electricity. You've got legacy debt from within the sector from our NEPA days, which are in the billions of dollars, which the federal government committed to pay off when all of these assets were divested on the distribution side and on the generation side and private operators bought. That hasn't happened. The Discos and the Gencos have always complained that ab initio makes their operations inefficient because they don't have the investment confidence to continually invest and roll out and connect people and meter them up and ensure that they're able to generate more electricity and they're able to get electricity down to all of us. But then there's another elephant in the room. Nigerians don't pay for electricity, or at least we don't pay fair market value for electricity. And so since the government hasn't moved for years, the discos have tried to focus on the customers and try to, wring out as much out of them as possible with things like the MITO, the multi-year tariff order and all of that. Regulation constrains them in how much they can charge us, but the charges are slowly increasing. And if you are a Nigerian who currently lives in a place where you have access to a lot of electricity, so, above 12 hours and above, right, you definitely know that you are paying fair market value for electricity. So there's a lot going on, but like you said, it really dovetails down to money. Who will bail the cat and pay for all of this?
Well,
the customers, government, or anyone?
Does the government even pay? I hear parastatals of government are also owing to.
The military and police, and so they don't.
So Joseph, I'd like you to because Ikemesit, I didn't bring this up. He did, so I'm not calling you out. How many hours of electricity do you get in Abuja?
Well, I think surprisingly, it's by some kind of coincidence, since this new administration came out,
Okay.
This is to have improved.
How many years? Give us figures.
I don't know. I think now I get
It's so
up
constant, they don't even know any longer.
No, I think I get up to 14 hours or
So I better pass you.
Ikemesit, how many hours do you get?
I better pass you. So I think I do 18 to 20.
Oh, you
Wow,
must be
that's-
okay. Over and
Yeah,
above. So
18 to
Lagos.
20.
Okay.
No, my part of Lagos.
Okay. So finally, this is how we close up this
And to
figure.
be clear, no banana.
And they also show us now that some parts of the country, Ibadan, Yola, Kaduna, and Abuja dropped in terms of collection of efficiency.
Yeah.
That's what we see there.
Only just improved.
So, well, that's a wrap on Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. I want to say thank you to our analysts in the house today. Great company, honestly. Joseph Obari, anytime, any day. Are you going to the golf course anytime this weekend?
Hopefully tomorrow.
And Ikemesit also, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks,
And thanks
Guys,
to
it's been great.
yeah,
It's been
guys.
great. Thanks so much.
Okay, so we also